Good evening, Winter Park, Rollins College, WPRK. This is Creative Control Radio, and we're your hosts. I'm Elijah.
I'm Mecca.
I'm V.
And I'm Hunter.
And we've got a full house tonight. First time in a long time. But most importantly, we are joined today by a very talented individual. We'll say that at the very least. Has worked with a slew of artists, a plethora, if you will. Cypress Hill, Tony Braxton, Aretha Franklin, TLC, one of my favorites, Lil Wayne, Ludacris, Beyonce, T-Pain, guys, I'm not joking, Michael Jackson, Tupac, the Notorious B.I.G., Pharrell Williams. I've only kept talking here because I'm more impressed as I keep reading. Ladies and gentlemen, we have on the show right now with us in live person, Leslie Brathwaite.
How you doing?
How are you? It's Brathwaite, isn't it?
Brathwaite.
Brathwaite.
It's all good.
Leslie Brathwaite. How are you?
I'm good. I'm great. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me here. I'm happy to be here. Excited.
Yeah. What brings you to town this time around?
This time around, what brings me to town is what brings me to town pretty much every month. Uh-huh. I am a Full Sail University alum. I graduated in 92. And from the recording arts program, I'm a mix engineer. So throughout my career, I've always just had a really close tether with the school. Mm-hmm. And I have a really big heart for, coming back and mentoring students. And that just kind of turned into a very regular thing. And now it's monthly. So I come back, I mentor. I have an online course that I do there. I help the staff. I help the students. I have all kind of initiatives going on. And then one of the main things I do when I come back every month, they do a behind-the-scenes presentation. It's kind of like an open house. Mm-hmm. And they present to prospective students, their parents, students who may have just enrolled or thinking about enrolling. They do a whole presentation. And I come specifically to speak to the parents, because my story is one that involves my mom not liking my career choice and not being supportive of me coming to Full Sail. And, of course, she's great now. But,
yeah.
So I come to tell that story to really kind of engage with the parents who may be like, I don't get it. And they can't really connect the dots of a career, and they think it's a hobby. So I come to kind of appeal to them, and that's kind of my passion. So.
Now, is this before or after they take the tour and see the trophy case that has your 17 Grammys in it? Is that
well? Only I think 2 or 3 of my Grammys are on campus. The rest of my Grammys are some are
scattered across the globe.
They're in the basement. Some of them are at my mom's house. But ironically, I'm the very last person that addresses them. So they come, they do the whole tour, they do the whole thing. Mm-hmm. They see graduates come back and talk about their experience, and then I'm like the cleanup. I'm literally the last message. And why I think that's impactful is the whole day, and I can't tell you how many times I have parents come to me and say, "Man, that's the thing I needed to hear," because the whole day they're walking around the campus and they're seeing all this stuff, and they hear all these stories of how people persevered and are successful and all this stuff. And then sometimes they're thinking, yeah, that's not my kid, and then they look at all this stuff and they can't connect the dots, and they're like, this is very expensive and da-da-da. Mm-hmm. So my story and what I come to share with them helps to kind of give them some perspective that they may not have been thinking of.
Yeah.
Wow. I just wondered, what is the perspective that you really try and get across to them?
What I tell them is, as you look at all this stuff and as you hear all these things about determination and hard work, and you think to yourself, well, this kid, that's not my kid. Mm-hmm. What I tell them is, look, you've been asking your kid for 18, 19 years to do things that they don't want to do. Mm-hmm. And when they're in an environment doing something they love, it's a lot of times you get a different result. And the thing I always try to make the connectivity piece too is, I use the example of when I was a kid, there were 3 things I loved: music, sneakers, and video games. And all the adults in my world would say these things are hobbies. And now, when you fast forward 30 years later, all 3 of those things are billion-dollar industries. Yeah. So I try to bring home that point that, yeah, you may not be connecting and seeing the things here as a career, but your kid does. And when they're passionate about something, they'll usually be okay. And that's usually the thing that especially a lot of the moms come up to me and go, man, I needed to hear that today.
Yeah.
Because they had only been thinking about it a certain way. Mm-hmm. So it's my thing is I just try to offer a different perspective, you know.
Oh, man. Absolutely. The ultimate career day. I'm sure Full Sail is more than grateful.
Absolutely.
Hey, Mecca, how you doing today, man?
Doing well, man.
Welcome back to the Sunshine State.
Thank you.
You spent some time, it was at Arizona?
Yep, Phoenix.
Yeah,
hanging out with my brothers.
Caught the Final Four action.
Yeah.
Who'd you have winning the whole thing?
UConn.
Did you?
Yeah. I mean, I saw them last year. They looked the same.
They really haven't slowed down much. They ran through it last year. I think the point differential, the spread, was even greater this year. Mm-hmm. And they lost. The only players they lost was to the NBA. So, I mean, they're just, kind of dominating college basketball right now. DJV.
What's good?
What's going on?
Feeling wonderful today.
Yeah, you look wonderful.
Thank you.
You're styling with the pants. So Leslie, DJV kind of kills us with the wardrobe every week.
Okay.
Mecca has soft committed to competing with her, but emphasis on the soft because she's like the UConn of our dressing here at the.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man.
I try to keep up with just the sneakers.
I was just about to say the sneaker. I'm
gonna get in the sneaker competition.
Yeah.
You know, everything else is a little, but
I gotta get my sneaker game.
I always keep my Jordans.
Ooh, I don't have a Jordan. So.
Jordans, Kobe's, or LeBrons. You'll see me in from time to time. Mostly Jordans, though.
Yeah. Hunter. Hey, welcome back to the show. We'll give Hunter a round of applause here.
Can't hear it, but I can imagine it.
Hunter, you've been missing the show lately because
I've been in school and I have a class.
Oh, what?
Yeah,
Boo.
It's the worst, isn't it? No. Especially when it's not music related, but or anything interesting to me. But
where there goes our Valencia sponsorship.
Right.
Leslie, before we get into our favorite segment, the best thing we've seen this week, if you would be so kind to describe yourself in 3 words.
In 3 words, I would say husband, father, and mentor.
I love it. We love it.
Yeah. Those are my 3 jobs.
There's probably been a lot of fathers that came onto this show, and he's the first one to kind of add it as a descriptive word.
Absolutely.
When you say mentor, what does that really hit on?
Yeah, I think for my craft, being a mix engineer, being someone that a lot of the kids I have access to, they want to be in my position. They want to work with the artists I'm working with.
Everybody in this room, yep.
So, excuse me. So naturally, that's just a role that I love. I love helping people and seeing light bulbs turn on for people. And a lot of times what I love to do is, and you can probably gather this just from the conversation we just had, for the past, 20 minutes, my mentorship and the way I try to guide and lead and teach has very little to do with the actual technical stuff. Mm-hmm. It's very little to do with audio and buttons and all that stuff. And that stuff is important, and I do share what I know and what I've learned. But it's the life stuff that's important. It's the kind of person you are, how you relate to people, how you see certain situations, how you navigate your career. Those are the things that I love seeing the light bulb come on for people over simplicity. Because a lot of times people in life just overthink everything. Mm-hmm. And when you learn to just break things down and just think of things in a very simple way, it can really open a pathway for you.
That social aspect that you just described, that's not so much like the, mixing or mastering or making a song, but more how you conduct yourself as a professional. Would you say that is it can make or break you?
Absolutely.
How you?
Absolutely. Because I've heard several people. Beyoncé has said this. Pink has said this in her own way. I remember Beyoncé specifically said this in a room that I was in one time when she was like, she would much rather work with somebody who was less talented but fun to be around and easy to work with than somebody who was way more talented, but they were just, totally not fun, not cool.
Yeah.
Because the energy is everything. The ease of understanding language is everything. knowing how, and it's not just being fun or being somebody people want to be around, is do you add value to this person's life? And that can be in any shape or form. It can be understanding when, I work with a lot of female artists. I work with Cardi B a lot. I work with Beyonce a lot. When Cardi walks in the door, the first thing I got to do is figure out, is she in a good mood?
Yeah.
Is she da-da-da? Sometimes she's coming in and she wants to hear music, and then she'll say something like, I'm hungry. And I'll stop and be like, we got to address that first.
Yeah.
Because if she's not fed, nothing she hears is going to make sense to her. So let's so you got to know how to dial in to people and figure out what they need and how to serve them. Sometimes better than they know how to serve themselves, because sometimes they'll think they can muscle through it and be like, no, I don't need to eat. Let's go ahead and listen to. No, you need to eat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just understanding how to talk to people, how to develop a language, how to care about them as people and not handle them. I think a lot of artists get handled by their labels, by their managers, and it's just being knowing how to dial in. That social aspect is super important.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Even more so than the art sometimes.
Huh? Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't think I've ever been so excited to ask so many questions, and I probably won't get to ask all the questions. But staying on track here, we can get into the segment, the best thing you've seen this week. Now, this can quite literally be anything. It can be your niece's dance recital. It could be a live sporting event that you saw, a movie that you watched recently.
We're going to get into it. This is
I know where you're going.
This is where we get into the Kendrick J. Cole conversation. This is where we get into it. So, just for context, for those who may be listening who have no idea what I'm about to talk about, Kendrick recently dissed J. Cole overtly on a record and on a verse of somebody else's album.
Like that.
And then J. Cole decided to respond with a whole EP or a whole album. And in my opinion, I like J. Cole more than I like Kendrick, but I still like Kendrick.
Yeah.
So here's why I put this in the best thing I've seen all week category. I know that the popular opinion is, oh my God, J. Cole is soft. He ruined his career by apologizing because he, again, for context, if you don't know, just a couple nights ago, I think either before or after a show, he was sitting on a stool on stage and he apologized to Kendrick. And really, it was less of an apology to Kendrick, but we'll get into that in a minute.
Right.
But he apologized to Kendrick, and the entire music industry and probably beyond is calling him soft and why you make that move and you just ended your career, da-da-da. And here's the thing. For the sport of hip-hop and for the hip-hop in me, I love hip-hop. My love of music came pretty much through hip-hop. I literally turned 50 last year, same age as hip-hop. So, I mean, it's ingrained in me. The sport of it, I wanted to see J. Cole keep going back and responding. I didn't want the apology. I want it to be sport.
Yeah.
What I do understand and what I do think J. Cole understands is there's two aspects to that. A, there's art and then there's life. What unfortunately happens a lot of times is rarely do you see, especially high level, a lot of eyes, rarely do you see that kind of beef play out strictly on records. Somehow it always gets into
real life.
And it's never the people that's beefing. It's always the crew.
Yeah.
It's always the boys, my homeboys.
Yeah.
And then, so J. Cole's homeboy see Kendrick homeboy at the club and feel like he got to prove himself. So now you shooting at this. It always turns into that. So from that standpoint, I understand the other perspective. The other thing I would say I really relate to and I really understood is J. Cole really wasn't apologizing to Kendrick as much as he was really apologizing to himself.
Correct. Yeah.
He was like,
oh, man,
I stepped out of line. And the journey I'm on, this battling and insulting someone isn't in line with who I am or where I'm trying to be. And I also thought it was very noteworthy of how he apologized because what he said was, I can't even stand on the diss because Kendrick's catalog is amazing. That's not truth.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to diss him and spar with him, I'm going to at least keep it authentic. And he was apologizing to himself for stepping out of his own authenticity and alignment. So I totally get that. And I honestly think that's the best thing I've seen all week is somebody
The walk back.
knowing he was going to get crucified by all his peers, knowing that everybody's going to call him soft and everything else. He did what he felt was in alignment with himself. And I will say this one thing, and I'm going to leave it here. And a lot of people ain't going to want to hear this, but I'm going to say it anyway. When you have a lot of people who are really clamoring for war and they want to see conflict, that's because most people are at conflict with themselves. That's really what that is.
Bars.
So, you know,
Yeah.
I get the alignment thing because that is a personal mission I'm on. I'm not saying I'm fully aligned, but I'm on a alignment thing. I always want to do the right thing. I always want to make sure I'm walking the right way.
Yep.
So I
immensely
get
important.
that. Yeah, I get that. So that's why that was the best thing I seen all week. For a man to stand up there knowing his peers in hip hop and fans are going to crucify him.
Yeah.
And he did what he felt was in alignment with who he was, which is I got to apologize.
So my thing is, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I couldn't be more well said. I completely agree with you. A little bit of devil's advocate here.
Okay.
Why would he, knowing he feels that way, and I think he's been kind of on this better spiritual, because J. Cole's not mainstream in the sense how he markets his music when he drops the subject matter even that he talks about. So I don't think this is a kind of new behavior for him. That apology, that walk back, seemed kind of right in par with who I believe J. Cole is and what he puts out there. Why did he, one, release it in the first place? And then two, this is the big two for me here. Why release it and then you can't just release it and then call it back? You know what I mean?
Well, I'll give you two things. I'm a devil's advocate.
I didn't mean that. I was just joking.
No,
but you dropped it.
No, but here's the
it's
thing.
out there forever.
That's a good point, and here's the thing. And let me start off by saying, remember, I still like the sport of it, so I kind of didn't want him to apologize.
Yeah,
I'm saying that too. So, however, so to your first point, I think that's what makes where he is and what he expressed authentic, because what he did was he said, I dropped this thing and I had been feeling terrible since I dropped it. So what he was able to do is, in the middle of what he perceived to be a mistake, he owned it. And then he said, you know what? I dropped it. So a lot of people are saying the same thing. Well, why would you drop an album then apologize? Well, that's how it works. That's the progress of apologies. You do the thing. You don't think about the thing you're doing. And then you realize, you know what? This don't feel right.
Yeah.
Don't feel good. Let me apologize. So I think that actually makes it authentic. The other thing is, I think he was self-aware enough to know this is actually taking me out of alignment, but I got to address it because of the sport in me. That's why he called it Might Delete Later.
Yeah.
He already had the self-awareness to know this is a reaction, and I might want to take this back later, but I'm reacting.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's some authenticity in putting it out and then apologizing, because that makes the apology genuine. The fact that he said, man, I did this thing, and I ain't gonna lie, I've been feeling terrible for the past 2 days. In his apology, he said that. So he is now reacting off of realizing that he's out of alignment. He didn't know how he would feel until he did it.
Yeah.
So
That's fair. That's fair. Do you think Kendrick's going to come back? J. Cole also said in there, my chin's out.
'Cause
Take your
he
best
knows.
shot, and I'll just eat it.
because he knows that based on where Kendrick is,
TDE.
he probably is
Compton.
he's probably gonna take a shot. And I wouldn't be surprised if he take a shot and then J. Cole, I'm actually wanting J. Cole to step out of alignment again. Come on, step out of alignment just a little bit and chew him up again. Like, just a little bit. Step out of alignment just a little bit. But, I mean, I understand. All I'm saying is I understand that walk of doing a thing, knowing that you're trying to always do the right thing, and every now and then you do something and you step out of alignment, and then you got to own it and be a man and apologize. And that's something that a lot of people don't have. A lot of people don't have the self-awareness to pivot mid-mistake.
Yeah.
They don't have the self-awareness to be like, man, past couple of days, I don't like how I felt when I dissed him. They don't have that.
And if they do have that feeling, that self-awareness, they almost don't have the heart.
They don't have the courage.
Yeah.
So I actually, like I said, I think that was actually the best thing I've seen all week. Yeah. I get it. I understand it. I didn't fully agree with it, but I understand it. And like I said, that understanding comes from a place of, I would like to think, I'm not declaring, but I would like to think I don't fall into the category of people that are at war with themselves. I try to do a lot of self-checking, self-alignment, making sure I'm self-aware. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm saying there's a lot of people that walk around at war with themselves. And when there's no way to be at peace with yourself if you desire war.
Yeah.
If you desire conflict, you're not at peace with yourself.
Ooh. Bars again. We're going to have a lot of quotables from this interview here. Hunter, the best thing you've seen this week? And it can't be us because you haven't been on the show in a while. Yeah.
This might be more than a week, but
okay.
I feel like it counts because I haven't been here for a while.
Sure, we'll give it to you.
Okay.
It's not that long. But I guess I would say Mecca using one of my beats. It was cool to see.
Oh,
that.
nice.
Nice.
Even if nothing happens with it, it was just
Well, I know that I'm playing tonight.
That's dope.
A little Mecca and Hunter collab here.
That's dope.
No, not yet. But that or Tiana coming back, I would say. That's
nice.
more recent and falls within the week. So.
She was overseas. Did I see that?
Yeah, she was in Italy and then Spain, like Barcelona specifically. Yeah,
Nice.
for 2 weeks.
Cool.
My girlfriend, for context,
DJV.
I'm going to have to say the 20th annual lip sync, man. That was great. I got to DJ after, so I had a really good time. It was really great seeing all the organizations, fraternities, sororities, clubs come out and lip sync and do their dance. Yeah, I had a really great time. So, yeah.
Nice.
For a little background information there, lip sync, I would say is probably the most popular event that happens at Rollins every year, maybe next to Fox Day. But and it's just fraternities, sororities, different groups here on campus. They all, for lack of better words, dance battle.
I need to come to the next one.
Yes, you do.
I need to see that.
There was like
when you see me, let me know. I need a dance off. Okay.
Yeah, they just play. They come up with their own routines. Each different fraternity, sorority, campus-wide organization groups, and they all get their sets on stage. They have judges made up of faculty and staff, and I think half get disqualified. But it brings the entire school out to the point where they've moved the event to this lawn here that we just, it's pretty amazing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, she DJ'd the after party.
Yeah. I gotta come.
Yeah, definitely get you an invite. Love Mecca.
Best thing I've seen this week has to be my brothers.
Nice.
It always puts me in like a different type of energy, like a different creative space. Like last time I was telling Eli I was going through like one of the worst creative blocks of my life. Like for months, like I would go out to the car every night. I'd be writing stuff, and I just wouldn't like it. I just like really just facing this block. And I drove out to Phoenix in November and spent some time with my family. And when I got back, I just hit a different mode, like cooking every night.
We call it a renaissance.
Yeah, it was like a whole different space. And I've kept some momentum, but I went back this weekend.
Yeah.
And
juiced up,
recharged. Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes I think what that's a testament to is you got to let your life influence your art. And a lot of times when you're trying to force the art because you know you're capable of making the art, that's when you get in that, I know I can do this. But sometimes it's life and just your state is what lets the art flow. Like you went home, you was with your family, you got clarity, you got alignment.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got alignment, and then that art just flows. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
You are the youngest of your brothers, correct?
Yep.
Do you feel it when you're with them? Like I'm the young brother, or not really?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I never feel that young unless I'm with them.
Yeah,
like
I get that.
Yeah.
I'm the baby too. So
Me too.
I get that. I always feel like I'm good, and then I get around my siblings, and I'm like. Yeah,
and it's obviously you've had way more success than me, and all of us. But it's that my brother. It doesn't matter what I've done, what I've accomplished, what speech I just gave, or how much money, whatever. Every time it's around him, it's like he's unimpressed. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? And
absolutely.
not in a bad way, but it's just like you're just logic.
Same for me. My fam, they don't care about Grammys and all that. It's the same for me. They look at me like
this guy.
You know.
Sweet. Mine is quick and simple. Mine is Leslie sitting right here in our studio. I have I'll say manifested this moment mentally. I was just like, man, we got to get him on the show. We got to get him on the show. And I mean, you're a really nice, approachable guy, but for some reason, when I just thought he's not going to come with the show. But I mean, you being here right now, that has to be the best thing I've seen this week, and this was a long time coming. So
It's pretty flattering. Thank you.
we appreciate you, man. We're going to go ahead and take a short musical break here. Some tunes by our featured artist here, Mecca. A little hide and seek. We'll be right back here on WPRK 91.5. This is Creative Control Radio. And we are right back here on WPRK 91.5. This is Creative Control Radio, and we're your hosts. I'm Elijah.
I'm Mecca.
I'm V.
And Hunter.
Oh, sorry, Hunter. It's been a while. We're joined by the immensely talented, I'd say, industry legend, the guru, mentor, father, husband, overall just a great guy. And I mean it. You're personable, but also like approachable. A lot of people. Leslie Brathwaite.
Yeah, there you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, sorry. Sometimes I get sidetracked with the.
I was waiting for like
there.
when y'all went around. I was waiting to get after Hunter. I was like, I'm Leslie. I was waiting for my little.
Hey,
you know,
we are all creative control. But welcome to the show, man. But what I was saying is there's so many people, and I'm sure you recognize it too, in elevated places, elevated titles, jobs, and all that. And then I'm talking elected officials I've met with, all sorts of stuff, and they begin to like speak over you or over your head, or don't even make eye contact, stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's kind of what you were saying, separating the art from like the artist. They all blend it all together, and they just don't even talk to you when they're talking to you.
Yeah.
You are kind of the opposite of that, but still with the same status. So
well, thank you.
Kudos to you, brother.
Well, I'm not an elected official, but I'm all right.
But you could be if you wanted to be.
I do okay.
This segment is a lot more about you, kind of when, where, and why you got started in your profession. You can kind of start with the when and the where and the why.
When, where, and why. So I was born in the Virgin Islands in St. Thomas. I grew up mostly there. Traveled a little bit when I was younger. My mom was getting her degree in New York, so kind of moved back and forth. My love for music, and specifically my love for what I do, mixing music and mixing records, it really started, and I discovered this probably about 4 or 5 years ago as I was telling the story. I discovered, as I'm telling the story, this is where the birth of my love for mixing started. So as a kid, my dad had an insane record collection out in the living room. And it's everything from Bob Marley to Led Zeppelin to Whitney Houston, you name it. And so as a kid, and then my brother, he liked DJing when we were younger and da-da-da. So he had an insane hip-hop collection. So every night as a kid, I would sneak out into the living room. And at this point, my parents had divorced. My dad lived not far, but he left all the records, turntable, da-da-da. And every night I would sneak out into the living room. I would spread all the records out over the floor, and I would sit with the turntable and sit and play records. And the thing is, I couldn't listen on the speakers because I didn't want to wake my mom up. So I would put on, back then, all the headphones were like those big, like looking like pilots headphones, like the huge cans that you put on your head. So I would put on the headphones, sneaking out there listening to records. And I think that process is what actually informed my love for mixing, because as I'm listening to stuff in the headphones, listening in headphones is a very different experience than listening on speakers, because you hear things in headphones and you're like, yo.
Yeah.
And you're like, so like I would listen to Al Green records, and those kind of records, like Al Green wasn't scared to put a whole drum kit on one side and then a whole guitar be over here. Or, I'm listening to all kind of stuff and I'm just like, yo, like this is wild. And it's true. Like listening to Stevie Wonder songs in the key of life, and you're hearing like he playing the clav and it's like over here. And so that I think kind of informed my brain on getting excited about mixing. I just didn't know it yet.
Song.
Yeah, I just didn't know it yet.
Yeah.
But I loved listening to stuff in headphones and picking stuff apart to the point when Sony dropped that Walkman with the with the headphones, the little orange pads. Remember those, the little rinky-dink headphones, but they had the little padded orange things. You couldn't separate me from my Walkman. I had that thing everywhere because then I preferred listening to stuff in headphones.
Right.
And so that's where it started, in the living room every night, sneaking out, listening to records till like 4 or 5 in the morning, and just really developing my passion for music then.
And before you got into because you say it took a while for you to wake up and realize like that you actually love the mixing and engineering aspect. Mm-hmm. Did you try your hand at the vocal, song, rapping art?
No.
Never?
You know what's a trip? Ever since I can remember, one thing I can say confidently is I was always pretty self-aware. And what I mean by that is I always knew I don't want to sing. I don't want to be famous. Those things were embedded in my brain. But what I did know is I love music and I don't want to spend my life doing something I hate. So I had these kind of sentences worked out in my brain. And then that, I think, was my guiding force to move forward. But I was very self-aware as a kid. And even just in my daily life, like I was a nerd when it wasn't cool to be a nerd. Like, I was in the 80s. I played, let me, I'm going to really demonstrate for y'all how much of a nerd I was, okay? I played saxophone. I played video games. I knew how to program the computer. I was like quintessential nerd. But
genius is what we call it.
But I loved it.
Yeah.
And so my self-awareness and self-confidence came from the fact that I didn't need to be cool. I just liked what I liked. And I was cool being me.
Yeah.
And so
where did that come from?
I don't know.
Because a lot of people don't inherently have that. A lot of people can't even learn to have that.
It is the reason why, I'm going back to it again, but it's the reason why I related so much to J. Cole when he said, I misstepped and I got out of alignment and now I got to get back in alignment with myself because I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to walk your authentic path. I don't drink. I don't smoke, and I promise you, my entire life, I've been the designated driver to everyone. And whenever I tell people I don't drink, they look at me like I got 3 heads. And they're like, but I've always been cool being in alignment with who I am. I don't drink, and I'm cool. And I've never succumbed to peer pressure. I don't know where it comes from, to be honest with you. I've just always been that way.
Oh, man, that's an awesome way to be.
So I don't know. But musically, that was what kind of set the path for not ever really wanting to perform, I just knew I loved, and I was very technical. I was the kid who I would always ask my mom for keyboards or drum machines every Christmas, every birthday, and she got so tired of me. She was like, "You don't want nothing else?" I was like, "No, Ma." Like I would get her to upgrade the things. So first I had the Casio, and then for the next birthday, okay, can I get the bigger Casio, and can I get the so and so? And then my thing was, anything I got, I had the habit and I had the need to take it apart to its barest components, so there'd be a million pieces of a thing on the floor, and then put it back together and make it work. So I've always had that kind of brain where if you buy me a turntable, I got to take that thing all the way apart. And it used to drive my mom insane. She used to be like, really? But I would put it back together and it would work. Because I always wanted, I think that was my process. Kind of like, then you buy a toy for a kid, like a ride-on toy, and they make you build it. Mm-hmm. What they're really teaching you is how to fix it when it breaks. So I think that was always my process, is I always wanted to know how a thing worked. So that, because we all know with equipment, things break all the time. You got to know. Part of my job is knowing how to fix a thing. Mm-hmm. So I always wanted to know how things work. So I would always take them apart, put them speakers, the whole night. I would take my speakers apart, put them back together. It's wild.
Wow. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I learned the hard way that you can't take speakers apart without having speaker glue, because you got to glue the cones back in. So,
A bit of a long-winded question, but that's very interesting. Like, audio engineering specifically is a very unique type of engineering. Because say mechanical engineering, someone says, all right, I need you to make something that puts this ball in this hole. And if you make something that puts the ball in the hole, it's a success. Mm-hmm. But in audio engineering, you may be dealing with someone where the artist says, I really want this chorus to shine. Mm-hmm. Or I want this verse to be gritty. Mm-hmm. And it's not very straightforward. So how do you deal with interpreting the gray area?
That is a great question, and that is actually what I when I mentor and teach kids, that's one of the things I teach is one of the first things you have to do when you work with people and as you develop your rhythm in working in this field, you have to understand how to develop language. And I'm going to tell you a short story to prove my point or to make my point. Very first time I met Cardi B, Craig Kalman, the head of Atlantic, had brought her to Atlanta. She had just told the label that she was pregnant, so they were in a huge hurry to get her album done because they wanted to shoot all these videos and da-da-da. So they bring her to Atlanta. She walks in the room, and after our first little conversation, first thing I asked her is, how's your pregnancy? How you doing? Da-da-da. So we kicked it off right then. So immediately she had an issue. She had just gotten a song mixed in Canada that she was doing for some kind of Canada show, but she hated the mix. Mm-hmm. So she said, hey, can you do me a favor? I know you're just meeting me, da-da-da, but I need you to help me communicate with the engineer, like, what I don't like. I said, okay, well, what don't you like about the record? And she couldn't communicate what she didn't like. Mm-hmm. So I listened to it. Sounded great to me. Didn't really have a problem. I said, well, what's the problem? How is it making you feel? And the minute I asked that question, she had every descriptive word for me. So now I knew that the way I communicate with Cardi is I got to make sure I understand how something is making her feel. Mm-hmm. So the first word out of her mouth was, well, it's making me dizzy. Mm-hmm. And I immediately knew how to solve the problem. Mm-hmm. There was a sound in the song that was kind of like a siren, and it was panning left to right. And it was on auto pan, so it would just go like this. She didn't have the language or understanding to say it's the sound that's panning. Mm-hmm. The only language she had was how it was making her feel, made her feel dizzy. So then my job was to connect with, well, what would make her feel dizzy? Mm-hmm. So I called the engineer. I said, hey, man, send the mix back. Just take off the auto pan on that siren. And he was like, really? I was like, trust me. If you just do that, you'll be good. He sent the mix back with the auto pan off, and she was like, oh, my God, it's great. What did you do? Oh, my God, I can't believe you got it to sound so good. She didn't know how to communicate anything other than how it made her feel. So I say all that to say that's my first point of contact with any artist that I work with. Mm-hmm. I got to figure out how they communicate. Mm-hmm. Almost like, how they say, I personally don't think there are just 5 love languages. I think there's a bunch. But you know how the 5 love languages, that's what you got to do. You got to figure out what is their language. How do they communicate? What language do you speak? And then we're off to the races. But that's the first thing I have to figure out is how do you communicate? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a huge part of how I accomplish what I accomplish, because I got to figure out how do you communicate, because everybody communicates differently. And if you don't go through that process right, you can get it wrong. Brilliant movie. Have you ever seen that movie, Arrival? It's a movie about these aliens that come down to Earth.
Oh, yes.
And they got the big pods. And
almost like a prequel, but alien spinoff, whatever.
Yeah, but she makes the point in the movie, they hired a linguist to deal with the aliens. And she makes the point in the movie that we have to get this part right, because the same word that can be a weapon can also be a tool. And if we use the word incorrectly, we communicate the wrong thought. So it's the same thing with artists, where I got to figure out how someone communicates so I don't misinterpret what they're trying to do. Beyonce communicates in a whole different way. I used to work with Lauryn Hill early in my career. She doesn't communicate at all. So I had to literally, it was body signals. It was when we finish the show, I'm gonna tell y'all a short story, but I got to do it off air because there's some things in the story that I wouldn't want to put out into the ether. But I'm gonna tell y'all a story about that.
Sure.
But she didn't communicate at all. So then I had to figure out, how am I going to communicate with somebody that doesn't communicate? So then I had to start reading body language. True story. When I tell you the story, you're going to be fascinated. But it's wild. Like, I had to figure out what every nose. It's almost like baseball players make signals and they'd be like,
correct.
I had to do that with Lauren. I had to figure out what every iteration of a movement meant for her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Would you say a lot of the process for you is creative, or is it pretty much like personally creative, or is it mostly fulfilling the vision of someone else and you're happy with it?
I used to think it was personally creative. And what I realized is most of the process and most of what gets me success is being a psychologist. And it's ironic that I'm married to a psychologist, but most of what gets me my success is understanding the things I just explained to you about how you communicate with somebody, how you understand their language, how you understand their goals without them necessarily have to communicate too much. That's a skill too, because artists don't like communicating. They don't like saying, hey man, can you turn up the so-and-so? They want you to kind of understand where they at.
Intuitive.
And feel them. Yeah. And so most of what has made me successful, I think, is the psychological aspect. Yes, there's talent involved, and you got to know how to make those 808s bang and all that. But to me, that's the easy part. The part that I've spent a lot of years dialing in is the human stuff. Yeah. Even in that same story, before we get to talking about the sound that was panning, Cardi walks in the room. This is my first time meeting her. She walks in the room. And she's clearly showing at this point. And Craig Kalman, head of Atlantic, goes, hey, this is Leslie. He's a great mix engineer. We love him, da-da-da. And the first thing I say to her is, how's your pregnancy? How have you been? How you been feeling? Because I've been through that. My wife has been pregnant twice. So I know that a lot of times the baby and the actual event gets all the attention, but a lot of people don't really check on the mom.
Right.
So my sensitivity was tuning into her. How have you been feeling? She walks back in the other room and cussed out all the people from the label. She was like, I've known him for 5 minutes and he cared to ask me how I'm doing. And I've known all of you for a year and nobody asked me how my pregnancy was. Nobody cares about me. I hate y'all. And then she comes back in the room with me. So that connectivity piece of just because I asked her how she was doing, that made her day. Yeah. That made her feel like I cared more about her than what I was getting out of it. So it's those kind of things I learned along the way.
Wow. Yeah, the intuitive nature. Our general manager at the hotel, he speaks on that kind of reading people and knowing their likes and dislikes without outright asking them.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
You mentioned a little bit earlier in the show that you didn't even realize that what you were really liking about the music you're hearing is kind of like the instruments, the engineering, the mixing. When did you realize that?
When I got to Full Sail. So fast forward through the story, I've been struggling in high school in a sense of like, not struggling grades-wise, I had great grades, but I was struggling with this notion of, I don't want my life to be like every other adult I see.
Oh, man.
All the adults walk around complaining about their jobs, and they look forward to 1 hour every Friday called happy hour. I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever. Like, happy hour is the highlight of your week? 1 hour? Or maybe it's 2 hours? But I was like, this is dumb. So I never wanted to be that. So I was like, okay. And then when I discovered Full Sail, which is a whole story within itself, got to Full Sail and started going through the coursework, that's when I realized, ooh, I like mixing. And then, like I said, some years later, as I'm talking about it, I realized, oh, I've always liked mixing. And it always connected. And even just to the science of how my brain works, where I always love to dissect a thing to know how it works and put it back together. Same thing with music. I want to know how it works, and I want to be able to put it together from scratch. And so, yeah.
Fast forwarding a little bit more, when was your big break, and who was it with?
You
worked with superstars, obviously. Who was like
my big break was with TLC.
Oh, man.
Yeah, my big break was
Go chasing waterfalls.
Yeah. Big break was I had been interning for a while, and I hadn't really recorded anything yet. And as an intern, I met Tion T-Boz, who she and I are now best friends. She is my youngest daughter's godmother. I am her daughter's godfather. Like, we are thick as thieves. So, but at the time, I used to always go get her food and all of their food, Lisa, everybody. And so through conversation, Tion was always the more personal one, T-Boz. She was always the most personable one. So she would always be like, so what you doing? Why are you here? You went to school for this? Da-da-da. Told her about Full Sail, da-da-da. So one day they had to do a song. It was called, I think it was called Get It Up for the Poetic Justice soundtrack. It was a remake of a Prince song. and it was on the Poetic Justice soundtrack. And they had to record it that they had just got clearance to do it, but it had to be turned in the following morning. It had to be recorded, mixed, and mastered by the following morning. This was a Sunday evening. It was raining. It was storming outside. The power kept going on and off, da-da-da. The engineer didn't show up. The recording engineer who was supposed to record them didn't show up, and he never called anything. Come to find out, I think he had gotten in a car accident, and then he was sick and whatever. But so I'm sitting there, and Dallas is stressing, pacing. Dallas Austin, the producer, he's stressing, pacing the room. And then Tion jumps up and goes, well, Leslie can record us. He went to school for this. And I was like, ugh. Okay. And I just was like, and she had so much confidence in me. She actually helped me get through the night because I was like, I knew I'd learned, some technical things. I knew what to do. I knew what buttons to push. And I get in there and I'm nervous and my heart's pounding and da-da-da. And then there was one time, as soon as I started recording, I erased her vocal. Like, I erased the take. But she helped me get through it because she was in the booth going, it's okay. We're not going to tell him. Like, we're fine.
So cool.
So, yeah. So,
God, that's so
she
cool.
helped me get through that night. And after that night, once I got going, it just took a few, minutes. And then once I got going, Tion did her part. Left Eye came in and did her part. Chili came and did her part. And we had so much fun that night. And I could tell they hadn't had fun like that recording in a while. And then the next day, I get a call from Dallas, the producer. He was like, hey, man, the girls really like working with you, man. If you want to work with us again, we're going to be recording some stuff this week. I think your energy was dope. And then from there, I just started recording with Dallas all the time.
Wow.
Yeah, and TLC. So that was my big break.
That was a crazy, awesome, cool story. He actually married into our family. He's married to my aunt right now.
Who's that?
James Watkins.
Oh.
Her father. I'm, I guess, third cousin
Really?
of Tion.
Really?
Yeah,
That's a small world.
I know. I've never met. She probably doesn't even know I exist.
Yeah. So when I got inducted into the Full Sail Hall of Fame, she was my inductor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she came and inducted me. If you come to Full Sail, you'll see a whole, all the pictures and all the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but her daughter's my goddaughter, and she is, you met my youngest, Isabel. Yeah. She is Isabel's godmother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, and small world.
Isn't that crazy?
It is. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome story, man. We have an open story segment, but you've told so many open stories.
I got a million of them, let me tell you.
Before we go back on break, what are some challenges that you dealt with kind of early on in your career, starting off with TLC even, compared to kind of now where you're at in your career?
The challenges I've dealt with have always been consistent. People always think that when they ask me that question, that the answer they're going to get is money and being broke in the beginning. None of that was ever challenging to me because I understood it. And I understood, okay, I got to live below my means. I got to eat ramen noodles for 2 years, all of that. What was challenging then and still can be challenging now, and now I've learned to, and I have the means to navigate it differently, is challenging personalities. Sometimes it's very difficult to work with people, and not even just people who just being mean or being a little diva or whatever. Sometimes it's very challenging, like Kanye West kind of challenging. It's hard to work with, and I love him. I love him, but it's hard to work with him. Yeah. Like really. So he's like on this, we have a little thing in the industry of the mix engineers. We call it the no-fly list. So Kanye's on the no-fly list.
I bet.
Yeah.
He's probably on a lot of no-fly lists nowadays.
Yeah, so it's that's always been consistent throughout. No matter where you are in your career, when you meet those difficult personalities and you really just try to push through it, sometimes it can be difficult, and sometimes you do have to. My grandma always used to say this thing: all money ain't good money.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to really go, you know what? I'm cool. I'm going to miss out on this little check right here because I don't need that stress.
Man.
Yeah.
You got a lot of things right, man. Jeez. That right there is nightlife in a nutshell. Mm-hmm. All money is not good money.
All money ain't good money.
I'm going to miss out on this check. Let me go do this
let
over
me just
here.
Go be good.
Go take a shower.
Because and again, it's not just simple things. It's you're dealing with people who are dealing with demons and drugs and cocaine.
Correct.
And, that stuff it's a lot sometimes. You'd be like, yo.
I'm good on all that. Yeah. Way better off.
But what makes it challenging is then when you were saying all money ain't good money, but you need to pay that rent.
Correct.
So you sometimes you'd be like, earlier in your career, you had to suck it up and be like, okay, let me go ahead and get this check.
Yeah.
But now, I can kind of
pick and choose wisely.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well,
Wow.
what makes an artist someone that you do like to work with? And is the music even important? Like how the music sounds even important towards that?
That's usually the least important thing because I've been fortunate enough to work on a lot of stuff I love. But for me, again, here we go with this word, the alignment word. For me, it's when I meet people, not necessarily, this is why I relate so much to what J. Cole said. Don't let this go over your heads. When I meet people who are aligned with themselves, when I meet people who are not at war with themselves, who are comfortable being who they are, they're nice, they're genuinely good people, I really connect with those kinds. Some of my favorite people to work with, Ludacris, top tier. I love that dude. Like, love working with him. He's such a good person, father, husband. Same thing with Pharrell. Good father, good husband, great producer. Ludacris, great artist. Beyonce is a great person. So for me, it's the person they are first before the art. The art is usually good, but I just love working with good people, like people who just, you can tell they're just good people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Solid, sturdy. Wow. Speaking of the Queen, we're going to go ahead and take a short musical break here on WPRK 91.5. This is Texas Hold'em, a familiar tune off of an album that our guest here worked on. We'll be right back here on Creative Control Radio. This is... and we are right back here on WPRK 91.5. This is Creative Control Radio. That was a little Colombiana by our featured guest host here, Mecca. Oh, I'm sorry, main host. Our guest host is... we'll get to him in a second. I'm Elijah.
I'm Mecca.
I'm V.
I'm Hunter.
I'm Leslie.
We're Creative Control, joined today by the incomparable Leslie Brathwaite. Now that Brathwaite. Leslie, thank you for joining the show.
Absolutely.
A man that has 17 Grammys under his belt, worked with absolute legends, but is a legend in his own right. Thanks for coming on, man. We'd like to do probably the I'd say the most enthused segment here on the Creative Control Radio is Happen Hypotheticals with Hunter.
Okay.
We're just going to take you through like a series of hypotheticals. You just answer kind of honestly.
Okay.
Some funnier than others, some more serious than others, but yeah.
Oh, this is fun. Okay, let's go, Hunter.
Hunter, let's give it to us.
With some general ones first.
Sure.
This one I thought of myself, actually. I was just like, I guess bored or whatever. But would you rather always have your food randomly over-seasoned or under-seasoned, or your drinks are always lukewarm?
Ooh.
Over-seasoned.
Over-seasoned, really?
No, they'd be over-seasoned or under-seasoned. You don't know what you're going to get. And you can't change it. Yeah. Or your drinks are lukewarm.
Or my what? Lukewarm?
Drinks.
Food over-seasoned.
Okay.
Yeah. Over-seasoned.
Over-seasoned.
Yeah. Because if it got too much seasoning on, I could just pat that thing off. Put a paper towel.
What if it's under-seasoned?
Yeah. Then I'm going to be looking for salt and other stuff. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
All right. Okay.
Is it no matter what you do?
I want it to be no matter what you do. Like, you can't change the outcome. Like, if it's under-seasoned or over-seasoned, you have to
You got to eat it?
Yeah.
Over-seasoned. Absolutely. Over-seasoned.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would, I don't know. I might go with lukewarm. What is it? Just water? And...
It's just like room temp, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, but like milkshakes, too, would be like...
Oh.
Yeah.
Nope. Over-seasoned.
Cold and sweet. Yeah, that would work.
Over-seasoned.
Fair enough.
What would you do?
I'd probably take the food.
Food?
I don't really care that much about eating anyway. It's just a hassle.
You're one of those guys?
It's a formality.
It's a hassle.
Formality.
Eating is a hassle. That's
Over-seasoned.
crazy.
Yeah, that's where me and him differ.
That's wild.
All right. this one would be a good one for you because you said you're a bit of a nerd and you play a lot of video games. Would you rather have a cartoon or your own video game? And both would be successful.
Yeah, own video
game?
Absolutely.
Okay. Did I ask you guys this one before or no?
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, I wrote this a while ago.
A cartoon or video game?
Yeah, and they both be successful and to a certain degree, but
I'd probably go with cartoon.
Okay.
Shape some children's memories. Come up with the next SpongeBob or something.
You make a child's cartoon,
Were we not going with children?
No, you could do whatever you want. It could be an
very
anime,
serious anime cartoon.
Yeah, an adult cartoon.
That'd be cool too. Dragon Ball Z, something like that. I don't know.
Dang. Probably a game. I feel like that would be dope. Not only for you, but other people playing as you.
Yeah.
So that would be cool.
Same.
Yeah. Okay, I'd probably pick game too.
Just because
I love games.
I'm going cartoon.
Yeah, I could see it be cartoon.
The character just always fresh. Just drip.
Thanks.
All right.
Uh-oh. You made the face. You made the face.
I got one. We usually ask this to most of our guest hosts. You get pushed into the year 2050. I guess that was 26 years from now. Only for 30 minutes, though. So you right now jump 26 years into the future for 30 minutes. What are you doing with your time?
I am... How many years is that? 26 years?
26 years from now.
I only have 30 minutes. I'm probably going to spend the first few minutes trying to figure out if my parents are still alive, where's my wife and kids, where do we live, did we hit the lottery, and then I would use that would probably take about 10 minutes. The next 10 minutes, I would find a bunch of the current lottery winnings. So I would look for all of those and sports bets and sit on those for 20-something years. And then, I would figure out something that happened very significantly in the time frame with the last 10 minutes, and then I come back and tell everybody about it, and they all think I'm crazy, and then I'll be a genius when it happens. Yeah.
That's almost our litmus test for anybody we bring on the show. I would say majority of people say
the same thing.
The lottery numbers. I get those from the past 10 years, and then I just go and play them when I go back to my time.
Absolutely.
That's the cheat code answer.
Absolutely. I'll do the Biff and Back to the Future. Yeah. Absolutely. Y'all will come to the future and be like, what did he do? How many oil fields do he own?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What you got, Brother Hunter?
I did have some mixing ones that I made, or music ones that I made before I came.
Okay, go.
There's simple ones.
You can do your speed round.
If there was one thing you could always get perfect in a mix, first draft, what would it be and why?
One thing that I could mix and it'd be perfect the first time?
Yeah, one element of a mix.
Oh, one element of a mix that I could always get right the first time?
You could even say it's a specific thing vocals or just
expression's
good or there's
low end. 808s, kicks. If you nail that every time, that's the heartbeat of the song. So if I could do that automatically by hitting a button, that saves me probably half the time because that's what I'm thinking about most of the time is the groove. Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of a little off subject here. Who do you count as the founder of 808s? Not, I guess, not who created it, but who made it popular, most popular.
That would be the early hip hop culture. Sugar Hill Gang. Yeah, those guys started using the heavy 808s in their records and that was the tool they had available at the time.
Yeah.
The Rolling 808 machine had just came out.
Yeah.
And so they made those. It's same thing with Prince. Prince made the not the Lindrum, the Lindrum. Popular because all those sounds from Purple Rain and all those albums were from the Lindrum. And so absolutely early hip hop artists really locked on to that and made that a sound that was a part of the culture.
Sugar Hill Gang, they're heralded as like the original rappers.
Yeah, they went crazy.
Hop, but hippie, hip, but hop.
Man, I remember listening to those records like, what is this? This is amazing.
Yeah. I can't imagine. You're talking about people being popular. I'm going to ask you about Tupac too, but artists or individuals being, given more credit, not saying that they were given too much credit, but given more credit than they're worth because of like the influence they had. And it was the first time we heard this kind of sound.
Right.
First time hearing rap. Right. I can't even imagine what it must have been like when Sugar Hill Gang came out with the... You ever went over to your friend's house to eat? And
and that song was so long, too.
It was
super long.
Yeah.
And they played the whole thing.
Cool.
What would you pick, Mecca?
Get right the first time.
Yeah.
Vocals.
I was gonna say, I know you're gonna say vocals.
Artist, yeah.
The artist in you.
If the vocals sound clean, I'm happy. We can work with everything else. But, yeah.
True.
How about you?
I don't know. I want to just say compression, honestly, even though that's pretty broad, but that's like the thing I struggle the most with, I'd say.
I can help you with your struggles with compression.
I was going to ask.
I can help you in one word or 2 words, 3 words. Ready?
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Ooh.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying.
That's very.
It'd be funny that you'd be surprised how many times a lot of people, like I tell people, I never compress drums, ever.
Really?
Never compress instruments. I do light compression on vocals sometimes, but even that, like with compression, if you can hear it working, it's doing too much. So don't struggle with compression. Like, don't make that your struggle point. It's not as necessary as people think.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the
That's
modern
free game
pop
right
stuff
there, baby.
is like heavily compressed. Like
Yeah.
Stuff you hear on the radio, stuff like that.
Right.
That's very interesting.
But there's a lot of modern pop songs that aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Billie Eilish, no compression. Olivia Rodrigo, no compression.
Really?
Absolutely.
It's just having a good like
just
source
levels,
sound.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. I've been hearing that more and more too. So I've been like, maybe I really don't need to do that on this specific thing. Yeah. Maybe it's more of like going to the source of it and like messing with that.
Messing with the sound itself, yeah.
All right. This one's a fun one. If you could pick 3 artists, producers, or engineers to make a project, who would you choose?
I would choose, as the producer, it would be Raphael Sadiq. As the artist, it would be, can I do Dead or Alive, or they have to be alive? It could be Dead or Alive.
You could do Dead or Alive.
I would do Michael Jackson. And then as the engineer, I would choose Bruce Swedien, who was Michael Jackson's mix engineer.
Wow.
Raphael Sadiq is one of those guys who is probably the most underrated producer ever. He is amazing. He actually was probably the lead producer on Cowboy Carter on Beyonce's album.
Oh, wow.
He did most of the production. He tied in a lot of stuff. Pharrell produced as well. But Raphael is a genius. Like, that dude is next level. Brilliant.
Is there
Tony?
Yeah.
an artist that you still want to work with, or that you wish you were able to work with?
You know what's interesting about that? I typically don't have an artist wish list per se. Mm-hmm. I just kind of like whatever path my career takes, and I'm cool with who I end up working with. I think the last time I did that or thought that, I remember for a long time when the Neptunes was hot, I wanted to work with Pharrell. And then one day I get a call to work with Pharrell. And I ended up I mixed Happy. I mixed like a bunch of his records. But that was probably the last time I actually said to myself, man, I really want to work with that dude one day. And I somehow manifested it. But I typically don't have those thoughts. I'm just always grateful for whoever I end up working with. And I think for me, the fun of it is a lot of the people I've ended up working with that have become big, they weren't big when I was working on them. So that's the fun, too, because back in the day, I wouldn't have been able to say, man, I wish I would work with Beyonce. She wasn't Beyonce yet. I met Beyonce when she was 12. Wow. So, you know what I mean? I love the journey of just working. Like, there's new artists I'm working with now, and I'm sure there's probably 4 new artists I'm working with. I'm pretty sure 2 of them are going to be pretty large.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like that's the fun of it too, is them becoming the person that everybody wants to work with and being a part of that becoming. Like when I first started working with Cardi, she wasn't Cardi B yet. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it's just fun to navigate it that way instead of sitting around wanting to work with, you know, these people. Now, there are people who have passed away that I wish I had gotten a chance to work with. Most notably and famously for me would be Bob Marley. Bob Marley's my favorite artist in life.
Wow.
So if you were to say, if you get one pick who you could work with, dead or alive, it'd be Bob Marley.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
It was my first musical experience, probably the first album I ever remember listening to. First concert I ever went to was a Bob Marley concert. So, yeah, it's wild.
I can't imagine what that would be like.
It's kind of unfathomable.
Yeah.
A lot of the stories, for just for saying it, it's like I can't even fathom. You're just the conversations that you've had, that you've been privy to. I mean, the information that you can both divulge and not divulge. I mean, it's just, I'm sure it's, beyond my comprehension here. I was going to ask, and you kind of answered it already. So you do kind of see it in an artist before they even pop, before they have a Billboard hit, before they go platinum, anything.
Sometimes you can.
This person's going to be something. Well,
yeah, and sometimes you're off. Sometimes you could think this person's going to be something, and then they turn out to be nothing.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's the opposite, where there's people I've worked with where I would have never thought they would have blow up. Like the most famous one, and I say it to his face all the time, most famous one, or not famous, but the one I can always track back to in my brain instantly is Chingy. You remember Chingy?
Yeah.
When I first started working with Chingy, I was like, so the lady who brought Chingy to me to mix, her name is Wendy Goldstein. She's famous in the industry. Everybody knows her.
I know Wendy, yeah.
Wendy actually discovered, or not discovered, but she signed the Wu-Tang Clan back in the day. So Wendy's like, she's got a hell of a track list. She's responsible for like The Weeknd, all this stuff. So when Wendy flew me out to L.A., she was like, I got this artist we're working with. He's going to be the next hottest rapper, da-da-da. I'm thinking, it's Wendy Goldstein. She's good. I get to L.A. and I walk in the room, and Chingy, I hear the very first song I mixed for him was Right There. And I walk in and I hear the record, and I'm like, what did I just get on a plane? Like, I was so disappointed, and I was so like, and I wasn't hating. I just genuinely didn't like it. And then he blew up. But I didn't think Chingy was going to be that large. I was like, okay, this is fun. I'm going to get a check, and I'm going to go back home. Poor kid. I remember saying to myself, like, oh, poor kid. He ain't going to never make it.
Yeah.
You know, and then he blows up. So sometimes you can't really call it because it's not just, A, it's not just about my opinion, and then B, it's circumstances. It's right time, right place, what's happening in the world. It's all of these things that the formula clicks for some artists sometimes, and they blow all the way up. Wow. And then sometimes you can have an amazing artist that never gets off the ground, and you'd be like, man, why? Like, you're so talented, and you're so good, and you just, there's some artists I'd be like, yo, like, why aren't you big yet? Like, but sometimes their stuff just don't connect at the right time with the right, you know, so.
There's a lot of externalities that you kind of can't control.
Exactly.
Huh.
Yeah, but so sometimes you can see it, and sometimes you can't. I remember when I first met Beyonce, she was in a group called, her group before they were Destiny's Child. The name of the group was The Dolls. And I remember when I first met them, it was Beyonce, Kelly, and the two other, Latoya and Latavia. And I saw them as a group, and I did think they were a good group. But I remember Dallas and I used to say it early on, like Dallas Austin. We used to be like, that Beyonce, though, she's the star.
Yeah. I
knew she was the star of the group. You couldn't even, it was undeniable that she was the star of the group.
Yeah.
And she'll tell you this to this day. She never wanted to not be in a group.
Yeah.
She did not want to not be in that group. Her dad is who really pushed that narrative for her. She didn't want to be solo. If it were up to her, I don't think she would ever have been solo. She wanted to be in that group. And Calendria, I always say Calendria because I always mess with her. Kelly is her cousin. Like,
yeah.
So she never wanted to not be with her. And, you know, so, yeah. But you see it sometimes.
Yeah.
You see them stars.
I mean, yeah.
I remember the very first time I experienced Michael Jackson, as far as consumer-wise, I saw him in The Wiz. The Wiz was my first introduction to Michael Jackson.
The Scarecrow, I think. Yeah. Oh,
when
boy.
he was singing that song, You Can Win, as the Scarecrow, I remember as a kid, I was sitting there going, who is that? He's the next big star.
Yeah.
I remember thinking that. That was my first time ever experiencing Michael Jackson, was that movie.
The Oz. Yeah.
Yeah, it was wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. Too many questions to ask. too little of a time slot here.
It's all
we
good.
got time for a couple more hypotheticals, and then we're gonna have to wrap up. Yeah.
Can they just be questions? Or?
Oh, we can do the speed round.
Oh, yeah.
One question I did have, and this is kind of a funnier hypothetical. If your life depended on it, who are you picking to recite what song? They have to recite every word, can't miss a beat, karaoke. What song and who are you picking? Your life is on the line.
I'm going to pick Tion, and I'm going to pick Juicy by Biggie.
Yeah, really?
I can't tell you how many times I've been riding in the car with her, and that girl will say, put on Juicy, and my whole life hearing that song. Yeah. I do have a backup pick, too.
Yeah.
This is actually a very surprising pick.
Yeah.
Not many people are going to know who I'm talking about. His name is Matt Pengra. Matt is the vice president of Full Sail. He's about my age, Jewish white guy. And he knows every single lyric to the entire De La Soul 3 Feet High and Rising album. and he's one of my best friends. And just a year ago, we just discovered this. So a year ago, he and I are going on this trip. We're driving over to the airport. And it's a year ago. It's literally the same weekend when their catalog became available on DSPs. For you younger people, y'all know who De La Soul is? And y'all don't know who De La Soul is? De La Soul is a very popular, De La Soul is a popular rap group from the 80s, 90s. Very influential group. They had an album called 3 Feet High and Rising that was probably, if you had to name the top 10 influential albums in hip-hop, that album is going to be on that list. There's not anybody in hip-hop who wouldn't put that album on the list because of what it meant for the culture. And so for the longest, for 30 years, their catalog wasn't available on DSPs because of a lot of legal battles and da-da-da. Well, last March, the catalog just became available on DSPs. So I'm bumping 3 Feet High and Rising. I go to pick up Matt Pengra, who's the vice president of Full Sail, and we're driving to the airport, and it comes on. He starts mouthing the words, and he and I are like best friends. Our families vacation together the whole night. And I look over at him, I'm like, you know the words to 3 Feet High and Rising? Because he's like mouthing the interludes and like the B cuts and not the singles. And I was like, it took our friendship to a whole nother level. I was like, we just went from best friends to best friends. Like, yo, to this day, so we bug out on it all the time. Like, he knows every lyric, even the interludes to that album. Actually, I might pick him over Tion. He might. My life depending on it. I'm picking Matt for 3 Feet High and Rising. Absolutely. It was the wildest experience driving to the airport with him. Like, literally, I was like, oh. Like,
That's the unification aspect of music.
Man. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my God. Yeah.
It's the multi-generational, multicultural,
my
across
goodness.
any nation, border, music ties people together.
I would have never thought that he would have known the entire album like that. And that was my favorite album. So I knew the entire album, too. Yeah. So I know all the interludes, all the stuff. I listened to that album probably more than any other hip-hop album in history.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. We got a little speed round for you.
All right.
Mecca.
Speed round. This sounds fun.
Take it away.
You might have done something similar on Pensado's Place. I don't know. It was
okay.
Cast the full episode. But it's just, I'm going to give you a word, and you just respond with the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh, wow. Oh, this is going to be fun.
It's all mixing related. So.
My brain is wild, so.
Give us 1 second here. We're going to give you the theme music. Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to have the little ting, 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 ting.
Oh, you do it.
Oh, Lord. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Speed round.
Wait, you gotta,
I gotta position myself.
Music a little low.
30 seconds?
30 seconds.
All right. Here we go, and it starts now.
Compression.
Never do it.
EQ.
Subtractive.
Automation.
Sometimes.
Side chaining.
I never do it.
Reverb.
Slight.
Halfway
Roll
there.
off low end.
Delay.
Necessary.
Saturation.
Necessary.
Panning.
Can be tricky.
Parallel processing.
I don't do it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I was like, am I saying a word or a sentence? I think I'm saying sentences. I'm like,
Round of applause, Leslie.
that's pressure when you got the music and you're like all intense. I'm like, yo, like
Hey, you
that
took it on the chin like
that was
J.
more
Cole,
intense
Mike.
than I thought. Like, yeah, I was like,
I might have to review the footage and dive into those.
Right.
pieces, but
Oh yeah, we're gonna be tagging you in a bunch of stuff.
Subtractive. Do you not do additive EQ?
I do, but subtractive is always first. My theory is, you will find that if you approach things in a way of what don't I like about this first, you will get to where you want to get to quicker than if you start adding. And it's the same concept I use when I say when you're about to clean up a room. If you're about to clean up a room, the first thing I do, I wouldn't come in and start wiping surfaces. I'd remove the trash first. What don't I want in the room? And then I clean. But you know what I'm saying? So it's the same thing with sound where when I approach a sound, the first thing I'm listening for is what annoys me about this voice, this sound, this thing. Subtract. And then you realize once you take out the things you don't like, you don't have to add too much.
Isn't there like a mirror effect in like mixing? Like if you kind of take the high end, the bass is going to sound like more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's and that helps because a lot of times when you're saying to yourself, oh, this person sounds muffled, it's not that you need to add high end. You might need to subtract low end.
Another one that stuck out was delay. You said necessary.
Yeah.
Slapback, is that fill spaces?
A lot of time delay helps keep timing and rhythm and fill spaces and gaps, and it just, especially in hip hop, most music nowadays is driven by hip hop, but it just helps to kind of keep the groove and keep the rhythm flowing. Delay way more than reverb. Reverb, I tend to roll off the low end and just use it for space to kind of give a sense of dimension. Reverb kind of just a lot of times it's there to let you know that there is some dimension to the mix, but delays really help keep the pace a lot of times. Fill the gaps, that kind of thing. And especially in hip hop when people be cursing all the time, delays can be handy filling the gaps of the curses when you got to do the clean version. You know, that's my whole life with Cardi. Yeah.
Wow. No, that was a great round.
Yeah, I mean that was actually our first round of doing that. Hopefully not our last. But,
Right.
I don't think a lot of people would be able to compete in your level in that specific space. So appreciate that for sure. And we are wrapping up here. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we're joined by Leslie Brathwaite, a Full Sail graduate, a multi. You know, the word multi goes it down after you reach maybe like 12. So that's where you got to give the certain number, like 17, 18 Grammys that he has won here. Worked with multitude of artists. Thank you for coming on the show, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being a friend.
Thanks for
Thank you
having
for
me.
being personable, engaging, opening up, putting us on the free game, really. Like, we appreciate you kind of giving back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wish there was more people like you. Who are we shouting out today? This is a portion where we give individual shout-outs.
Shout-outs? Well, I'd love to shout out. Let's start with the Alphon Hotel because they always take care of me over there. Love the culture, love the hotel. I love that when you check in your room, they're telling you about the art and the endowment and what the hotel means to Rollins. And I love all of that. I think it's special that it's not just a money-making affair and how the proceeds, I love all of that. Shout out to, of course, Full Sail University is the reason why I'm in Orlando right now. Special place, great place. Got a lot of good synergy between Full Sail and Rollins. And then, of course, shout out to my family. They were just with me last week. My wife, Doris, my two kids, Zoe and Isabel.
Lovely family, by the way.
Yeah.
Met them all. Had the pleasure.
Yeah, man. We be doing our thing. So just shout out to them. Miss them. It's always, it's fun to be down here, but I can't wait to get back to them.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Freaky Phil. Welcome back. Who we shouting out?
shout out my friends and family and you guys and Leslie for coming on. Yeah, that's really it. I'm going to keep it short and simple.
That's actually bigger than what it usually is. He's usually just like shouts out to myself.
Right.
No, not even. Not true.
DJ V.
Shout outs to my Thea and Theo, Oscar and Mercy. Thank you guys for listening today. Shout out to my family. Love you, Mom and Dad. And my other Thea, Gamita, shout out to you. It was good to see you today. And shout out to everyone at Rollins College. I don't know if Fox Day is going to be there tomorrow, but, I feel like it. I'm hopeful. So
You just put that on record.
I know. Maybe
Fox Day Roulette. Nice.
Shout out to my brothers, even though they're not listening. But shout out. It was a great weekend. Shout out to everyone joining us week after week. We really appreciate y'all.
For sure.
Shout out Leslie for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Definitely appreciate that. Shout out to all the mixing engineers out there. Truly the unsung heroes of music. The average music listener doesn't even know they exist.
Facts.
But we would not have the music that we have without them. So
Thank you.
out.
Yeah. Wow. Shouts out to Leslie, of course. One more round of applause for him for coming on the show here. Taking time out of his day, his schedule to join us here in Creative Control. Shout out to the whole Creative Control team, which hasn't been together in a while. Nice to see everybody in the same room here. Shouts out to my mom listening. Shouts out to my grandmother. It was her birthday last week. Shouts out to for sure. Shouts out to my brother. I think he's listening tonight as well. There was a lot more. We probably got our viewership up. We hyped up a special guest on tonight. But really shout out everybody listening who rocks with us week after week. I actually combed through our Creative Control DMs and we got a lot of people reaching out. Shouts out to you guys. Please keep hitting us up. We're getting back to everyone. But shouts out to Full Sail. Shouts out to Meat Botanical Gardens. We're going to be still partnering with Meat Gardens and Full Sail to bring about the Winter Park Music Festival here coming 2025. We got some exciting artists coming down here to kind of open that event up for us. Hopefully we can drag Leslie in on it as well.
I'm in. You ain't got to drag me. I'm in.
Shouts out to Rollins College. Everybody listening week after week. We definitely appreciate you. Leslie, where can we find how can anyone reach you listening right now?
I'm on socials. I'm Lester Bud on Instagram. I'm myself on Facebook. But yeah, mostly Instagram. People hit me up all the time on Instagram as Lester Bud, LesterBud. I got that moniker from a nickname. The studio, young lady who used to work at the front desk of the studio for years at Dallas' studio in Atlanta. She used to say I look like Bud from the Cosby Show. So she used to be like, Lester Bud.
Lester Bud. Oh man, awesome. Mecca, where can we find your music, man?
All platforms, MEKA, Mecca.
And it's fire too. I done heard a couple of the joints while we were here. Fire.
Definitely appreciate
Fire.
And Instagram at Mecca from the 703.
Leslie, I'm going to have to trouble you for a follow back on Instagram after this, but we'll have to talk about that on air. If you guys want to reach us, we are Instagram Creative Control Radio, Facebook CC Radio Show 2022, Twitter CC Radio Show 2022. And for our pre-modern listeners, you can always reach us by email, creativecontrolenterprise@gmail.com.
Pre-modern.
Thank you guys for tuning in this week. We'll be back next week. Same time, same place. This has been Creative Control Radio, joined by the incomparable Leslie.
Lester Bud.
Brathwaite. We'll take you out how we usually do with Mecca's favorite song here, Sweet Love by Lil Nita Baker. We'll see you all next week. Take it easy.
This is your favorite song?